This video is a marathon of season 1 of my 10 things you didn't know about series. Season 1 has 9 videos, so if you're wondering why it's not 90 things instead of 100, that'll make sense later on. I'm not that bad at math. So let's go ahead and kick things off with 10 things you didn't know about Illmatic. Here are 10 things you didn't know about Illmatic. 10 facts that connect Nas to Busta Rhymes, Russell Simmons, Phife Dawg, and MC Search. And keep watching because I have a bonus fact that you probably didn't know about Illmatic. So with that being said, here are 10 things you didn't know about Illmatic. The first song recorded for Illmatic was Halftime. The first song Nas actually recorded as a solo artist was for the soundtrack to a 1992 film called Zebrahead. The song was released as a single and it even has a music video.
Me and Large Professor was working on an album, and that was one of the records that we made for the album. And at the time there was a soundtrack to this movie, Zebrahead, and they needed a song, and it felt like it needed to come out right then at that point anyway, so he's like, there you go, right there, you good.
So Nas ended up hanging on to Halftime for 2 years and putting it on Illmatic, and the rest, that they say, is history. But that's just one fact. There's 9 more to go. Actually 10 more with the bonus. There's a few facts about Large Professor, we'll talk about a couple samples from the album, and even the album cover. But first, let's talk about One Love for a little bit. One Love was recorded in Phife Dawg's basement. Large Professor remembers a time when Nas was hanging out with him at the house and he asked him, "You think Q-Tip would want to work with me?" And Large Professor was like, "Hell effing yeah. He asked about you the other day and shit." And so he said they wound up at Phife's crib in the basement, and Tip was like, "If we work, we're gonna use this record." And he plays the record for One Love, the Heath Brothers joint, the same one Redman used for Superman Lover 3 from Muddy Waters. As a matter of fact, let's listen to Q-Tip talk about the making of One Love for a minute.
Large Professor hit me, told me, "Yo, you need to link up with Nas, I know you got it." It was Large and Akinelli and Nas that came out. We had a little setup in Phife's basement. Nas was like, "Yeah, I just need that shit you do." You know what I'm saying? Like, that mystic shit. I played him what was to become One Love.
I was so honored to get Q-Tip on this record. I mean, he must have liked what I was doing. He must have saw it being something he wanted to be a part of. He expressed to me that he liked what I was doing, and it was good from there.
The childhood pic of Nas on the album cover has a rip in it. Alright, I got the Illmatic album cover up on the screen right now. Can you see what I'm talking about? It's actually really noticeable, but until I was making this video, I had forgotten about it. In the bottom right corner, there's this big white rip on the photo from where the word Illmatic ends to past the parental advisory sticker. It's a rip in the pic that covers pretty much the whole bottom section of the cover. Large Professor explained where the rip probably came from. One time when Large Professor went to Nas's house, Nas told him, "Yo, this the flick I'ma use for the album cover." He had it under a piece of glass, and I guess when he went to go grab it, the glass must have stuck right there. That's what I love about hip hop. When mistakes happen, sometimes we don't even try to fix it. We just roll with it and make it work. I'm about to reveal a fact about the album title, but before I do that, keep in mind that later on, I got some facts coming up about Life's a Bitch, more about Large Professor, and about Russell Simmons and Busta Rhymes. But first, I bet you didn't know that Illmatic was dedicated to one of Nas's incarcerated friends. If you ever wanted to know how Illmatic got its name, I got that answer for you. It's named after one of Nas's homies from back in the day. And actually, he was gonna name it something else, but I'll tell you that story a little later. Anyway, in one of Nas's first interviews, he revealed that Illmatic was dedicated to Illmatic Ice, Nas's friend who was convicted of homicide. Here's what Nas had to say about his friend and naming the album after him. "I dedicated Illmatic to my man Illmatic Ice doing time for a murder right now because he was a strong man and he made his own rules for the game and he ain't take nothing from nobody. And he was kind of like a strong path to follow and look at. Even though he got caught up and misled into the wrong situation and now he's caught in the system right now, I still dedicated the album to him." Life's a Bitch was gonna have a different beat at first. Did y'all know that Nas wanted LES, the producer of Life's a Bitch, to sample Mtume's Juicy Fruit to make the beat for that song? That's crazy, right? I'm trying to picture it in my head. It might have worked, to be honest with you. But of course you know who ended up sampling that song though, the late great Notorious B.I.G. for Juicy. Nas talked about this in the article from XXL a few years back about the making of Illmatic. I asked LES to bring a copy of M2Mate's Juicy Fruit. Y'all know Nas sound like that. I wanted to sample Juicy. He didn't have the record, so he bought the Gap Band's Journey for Your Love instead. Looped it up, and I was like, yo, it ain't Juicy, but it's a whole nother month. While Illmatic sampled from the likes of Michael Jackson, the Gap Band, and Houdini, it was the audio sample from the 1983 film Wild Style, which was the hardest one to clear. I definitely would have thought that the Human Nature sample would have been the hardest one to clear. But when you really think about it, Michael was on Sony too, so somebody knew somebody that made some phone calls and they made it happen. But the sample in question is for the first track on the album, The Genesis, but I'll let MC Search tell you how it all went down. The most difficult sample to clear was with Wild Style director Charlie Ahern, believe it or not. We had made a deal with Charlie, and then Fab Five Freddy got into the mix and started getting into Charlie's ear like, nah, you didn't get enough money. The funny thing was, Fab Five Freddy was about to direct the One Love video. So I'm calling Freddy like, what are you telling your man? I'm about to cut you a check. You're about to direct a video. Get on the same page. Freddy said, are you threatening me? I'm like, nah, it's not a threat. I'm just saying, you don't take care of this, you're not gonna be directing no video. I haven't spoke to Fab Five Freddy since. A lot of years have passed since this interview, so I hope they squashed it. But either way, I'm glad they were able to make it work so we could get the intro to the album and have it sound the way that Nas intended it to sound. Nas's dad took him to see Wild Style when he was a shorty, and he loved it since then. Large Professor would edit Nas's rhymes. Large Professor edited, not wrote Nas's rhymes. Don't you dare go say you heard Back to the Boom Bap say that Large Pro ghost wrote Illmatic. I didn't say that. He was an editor. That's what producers do. They coach vocals and try to make sure your energy level is up and you maintain it throughout the song. And they critique your bars. Nas confirms this. He helped me because I only knew half of what was going on, said Nas to Mass Appeal back in 2002. I knew about the pen touching the paper. Paul knew that too. Paul is Large Professor. But he also knew to tell me, don't say this. Take that out. Why would you say this? That makes you look crazy. This word don't make no sense. He taught me everything. Russell Simmons passed on signing Nas. There's a lot of rappers that were originally going to be signed to different labels than they ended up signing to. There's Kanye, Game, Eminem, and Nas is on that list too. It's been reported that Russell Simmons passed on Nas for two reasons. The first reason is because Simmons was predicting that the album would be a commercial flop. He was kind of right as far as that goes because it didn't really sell well at first. And his second reason is because he said that Nas sounded too much like Kool G Rap. But I somewhat disagree with Russell's opinion here because while a lot of our favorite MCs from the 90s, including Nas, were influenced by G-Rap, Nas was original and unique enough that you could tell that it wasn't intentional. He clearly has his own style. Busta Rhymes could have had the halftime beat. There's not much else I can say about this. I'll read it straight from Complex.com. Busta Rhymes once told XXL that Large Professor made the beat that would later become halftime in front of him. But once Busta got the beat, he didn't know what to do with it. He told XXL, then I heard it on halftime and I was like, God damn, I was a stupid ass for not touching this beat. That's how the story always goes when MCs pass on beats that end up going to other rappers. They don't see the vision of it. And what's more, they even forget that they could have had it first because when they hear the MC who was meant for it, it even makes the beat sound better to them. It's funny how that works. Illmatic has been re-released at least 3 other times since its initial April 19, 1994 release date. So after Illmatic, there was Illmatic 10th Anniversary Platinum Edition, released on March 30th, 2004. Then there was Illmatic 20, the 20th Anniversary Edition, which was released on April 15th, 2014. Both of these contain previously unreleased tracks, remixes, and/or instrumentals from the recording sessions of Illmatic. The third one, which is a live recording, is called Illmatic Live from the Kennedy Center. It features Nas being backed up by the National Symphony Orchestra to perform the full album live on stage. It was released on April 21st, 2018. And remember earlier when I said I was going to tell you the story of what Nas was going to name his album before he changed it to Illmatic? Well, now is that time. Illmatic was not the album's original title. MC Search told XXL that Nas wanted to call his debut album Word Life, but he decided to let another rapper use it. That rapper goes by the name of OC, of course. Search said that OC asked Nas if he could name his album Word Life, and Nas gave him his blessing. He said, "I think Nas was going to switch to Illmatic anyway, but he was playing with the idea." There's a bunch of other facts about Illmatic that I didn't get to, so if you know something about Illmatic you think most people don't know, then leave a comment below. Here's 10 things you didn't know about Only Built for Cuban Linx. I'm going to be giving you facts about Nas, Ice Cream, Knowledge God, and the Purple Tape, which is of course what Cuban Linx is. So now, let's talk about 10 things you didn't know about Only Built for Cuban Linx.
I remember sitting down and we told RZA we need something in the beginning to light this shit up. And at that time we was looking at Scarface. We was looking at these movies and shit. So we went to that. We was like, yo, fuck that. We gonna put the skit on it. We was in the skits. And that part when Sosa and Scar and my nigga, they was going at it. They was like, hold on. Don't talk to me like that, man. Hold on, man. You know what I mean?
Take it easy when you talk to me, okay?
I told you a long time ago, you fucking little monkey, not to fuck me.
Hey, who the fuck you think you go to, huh? Who the fuck you think I am, you fucking dumb boy?
I told you before, but he's like, that's it. And then the beat just came, and then that's when me and Ghost was like, you know what? Now we gonna go to another level with niggas now.
The meaning of Only Built for Cuban Linx. In writing the script for a video for the movie that is only built for Cuban Linx, the first thing we need to establish is what does the title mean. If you look at the 3 dots beside the word Linx, this means that the title was cut off. The full title that the label wouldn't allow was Only Built for Cuban Linx niggas. But what does this statement really mean? Let's hear what Raekwon has to say about it.
I think it was a rhyme that was said that we was writing because we was doing a lot of writing together. Just reviewing our bars and just kind of like digging off each other. And at one time in the rhyme, it says something about only built for Cuban Linx who pull stings, sporting big pieces of ice carved in rings. So right there, it hit me. It was like, yo, only built for Cuban Linx. I'm like, yo, that sound like the biggest chain of all that can't be broken. It can't be broken, but it's the most gleamingest chain to come in the party with in front. And when you see with those on, those ain't your everyday. Those is different. They will come knock on your door, but the main thing was the shine and the lock that couldn't be broken. I used to run with that used to snatch chains and all that, and sometimes you go for the chain that you feel is the biggest and you looking at the lock because you like, yo, if the lock is kind of big, that determines how I'm gonna grab it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So those chains you couldn't actually break off nobody's neck. So I thought about the fact of the relationship that Wu-Tang had with each other and took that as a chain. This is a chain. We shining. We heavyweights now. Nobody can break this link. If one link is weak, we all look weak. The chain, it doesn't mean anything no more. So that's what I meant when I said only built, because only was the phrase that it really was private. It was almost like you had to be a member to respect this album.
Another thing that I find interesting now that we know what the title means is that Cuban Linx was originally going to have a different title. The only problem was Mafia didn't like Raekwon's first idea for an album title. The Mafia has serious power. I've seen enough mobster movies to know that you don't want to get on their bad side. But this is real life. The real life Gambinos told Ray he could not name his album Wu Gambinos.
They was like, yo, you can't call no albums that. And this was a conversation that I had with Rifkin, because Rifkin's pops, rest in peace, he was connected. He had a lot of relationships. So I remember me enforcing the title on Steve and saying, yo, this is what we want to call it. We want to call it Wu Gambinos
And he like, yo, I'm gonna look into that. And I remember him coming back to me and saying, yo, it's not happening. I was like, you serious? He's like, yeah, it's not gonna happen. You know, and he just told me like, yo, they not having that.
Thankfully, they were fine with him naming a song that, and it's a Wu banger that features Method Man, Ghostface Killer, Master Killer, and the RZA. But the main character of this Mafia movie is just different. The unique slang, the way he dressed, the beats he chose to rap on. Raekwon the Chef is just a different dude. So it's not surprising that Raekwon had a weird way of doing mic checks. Remember how there's a sniffing sound at the beginning of Knowledge God? Well, Raekwon clears up the question of whether or not he was sniffing coke in the studio session of this song. He says he wasn't, but after seeing this picture, it does make you wonder. But all jokes aside, here's his explanation. The sniffing at the start of the song just happened. That was part of the tape. When I did it, it wasn't like we knew that was gonna be a part of the track. I just did it on some, you know, a nigga don't gotta yell to hear the mic. A nigga could do another sound to hear the mic. So that happened to come out. I felt when I was sitting down writing that drug paraphernalia rhyme that I could have been a nigga on it like that at that time. We could have really been getting skied up, going to get this nigga after that. So it matched perfectly. But that wasn't like we was sniffing coke in the studio or no shit. The secret meaning for the title Knowledge God. I read this somewhere. It was either in a YouTube comment or a message board somewhere, and Raekwon has never confirmed it. But since the Wu-Tang are 5%ers, they often use the supreme alphabet. In the alphabet, K stands for king or kingdom, but they might also use it for knowledge. If anyone can confirm that, let me know. And the G stands for God. Now put K and G together, and you have the abbreviation for kilogram. He sniffs at the beginning of the song and tells the story of a drug dealer named Mike Lavona. I'm not 100% sure that that's what the title means, but it makes a lot of sense. The purple tape would have been the green tape. Back in the days as kids, when we did our little thing, we always tried to put some kind of packaging to let you know, yo, this is where you get it from. So that was my thing for the album, packaging, Raekwon said. But guess what? My favorite color wasn't purple at that time. My favorite color was army green, camo green. I always loved rugged colors and all of that. This album didn't sound like anything else out there. Me and Ghost was working hard to really get it to that level. And when it got there, I was like, I want to package it green. It's gonna be green. Raekwon and Ghostface Killer fought to make the cassette green, but the manufacturer didn't have green, forcing Raekwon to make a game time decision. I'm still in the color mode and vibing according to what I feel is gonna be it, but they only had 4 colors to choose from. There was the clear one, the yellow one, the red one, and the purple one, he explained. I chose the purple because purple represents royalty. It didn't come off on some girly style purple. It came off on official, fly, lavender purple. You know what I mean? The reasons why Raekwon was named Raekwon the Chef. There's a lot to unpack with this nickname because for Raekwon, the name has multiple meanings. I mean, you could say that he's the chef because when he puts the pen to paper, he cooks up some marvelous shit. Or it could be for some of the reasons that RZA explains in the book, The Wu-Tang Manual. To quote what he says about Ray from page 20, a lot of people want to know why Ray is called the chef. You see him on the inside cover of Only Built for Cuban Linx. He's at the kitchen sink with the Pyrex, looking like he's about to cook something up. But at the same time, Ray literally was a chef. He was known for cooking up some really good fish. Whiteys, that's what we ate in the hood, and he could fry up some delicious whiteys. But also, in a bunch of the original Wu-Tang movies, one of the best fighters was this character, the chef. The guy who played him was Yuen Su Tien, who's the father of Yuen Wo Ping, the action director who choreographed the fight scenes in The Matrix and Kill Bill. And that chef, Yuen Su Tien, he had a pudgy look about him, like Raekwon, so that's another reason we call him the chef. The other thing about Raekwon being a chef is that it's an acronym. Wu-Tang does this a lot. Wu-Tang is witty, unpredictable talent and natural game. Cream is cash rules everything around me, of course. And chef stands for criminals have to eat food. Because criminals sometimes cook what I showed you in the picture of Raekwon cooking in the kitchen that's not food, but they can sell to eat, meaning make money so they can buy food. You know what I'm saying? I told you it was gonna get deep. But let's get back to talking about the album itself. The Guillotines beat first appeared on Method Man's debut Tikal. This is one of the facts that I just remembered from back in the day because I think I had dubbed Tikal on a cassette from a friend and I used to play it all the time. So when I got the Cuban Linx CD, I recognized it from that previous year.
For me, there's been various samples from this movie.
Skills worthy of a general. If you want to fight, fight with me. 1 to 1, man to man.
To me, that was a symphony track. Meth had a piece of that beat on his album that was used as a skit. Cause that's how RZA is. Sometimes he mix other shit in and give you a piece of something, but not really act like it's gonna be assigned to that. He'll see if somebody like it and use it for fillers or whatever. I had told RZA a while ago after he did that, yo, I want that beat. Raekwon wrote Incarcerated Scarfaces in 15 minutes. I was just rhyming, man. I came in RZA's basement one night and he had just had that shit popping and I looked around the room and nobody was there. I was like, I want this shit. This is me. I wrote my rhyme in maybe like 15 minutes. The whole 3 verses. I was just flying. It was just coming to me. But that's how I get it in sometimes. If something really yokes me up like this, the beat just go, then I'm ready to get on it. I just aired that shit out in like 15 minutes. Before you know it, the song was popping, hook on it, everything. We like, that's Cuban Linx. RZA came up with the song concept for Ice Cream. I was shocked to hear that Ray didn't like Ice Cream because I've always loved that song. It's not the first song you'd expect to hear on the album, but it went hard because it was street. They didn't shiny suit it up and make it some old Motown sample with an overly pop, radio ready hook, but Raekwon wasn't feeling it at first. I hated Ice Cream. That's crazy, right? It's funny because I love the beat. The only thing I didn't like about the record, I felt like it was too soft for Cuban Linx. When I tell you everybody fought with me, even Ghost was like, nah G, this is it. And I was like, nah, it's too soft. We need everything hard, gutter. But there was no way Raekwon wasn't gonna change his mind once he heard how it all turned out. With that hook Method Man did, Ghost killed it, so did Capadonna.
RZA was like, yo, y'all got too many, jungle type of rhymes on there. We need something for the female perspective. So at that time, me and Ghost was like, yo, we ain't really making this album for the women, but at the end of the day, we respect what he said because we did have a lot of female followers, at that time. Meth was the Michael Jackson of the crew, so we knew that we had an audience of girls liking us. So we all agreed like, yo, all right, yeah, we better have at least one for the ladies, so next thing you know, the beat RZA had sound like an ice cream type of beat. You know what I mean? The beat sounded like an ice cream truck. It sounded like you could have heard that on the ice cream truck. So we still ain't have a name for it yet, but we knew that might have been the closest, softest, but fly shit that's gonna make the album. So when it came down to the hook, I'm not Captain Hook. I don't really fuck with hooks like that. So at the end of the day, Meth was there, he was in the room, yo, Meth, handle that. Meth handled it. Yo, he came with it. You know what I mean? Go set it off, yo, honey dip, summertime, fine jibby. So we knew that the rhyme was going to be something catered to the females based on the fact of the hook made so much sense.
So just like a lot of other times when it pertains to Wu-Tang, RZA knew what he was talking about. According to RZA, now I'm about to do my best RZA impression. Don't laugh at me, I think I got it, y'all. I gotta take total credit for the idea. I just zoned the fuck out one night and did a beat. Mel came over, I told him I got a crazy idea on this one. I wanna use girls' breasts as imaginary ice cream cones, y'all. I came up with the idea to make t-shirts to go with it. Meth, you gonna do the hook. It was the first song besides You're All I Need to Get By that we pressured him into. He didn't like being the pretty boy. He took those words I said, French vanilla, butter pecan, and put them in perfect order. It was really Wu-Tang's first reach out to women. Nas wrote multiple verses for verbal intercourse. Nas had to have felt a little bit of pressure to be the only MC not in the clan. I'm sure he didn't want to let Ray down. But he came prepared, so he had a bunch of verses to spit. According to Primo, Nas had similar uncertainty about himself on NY State of Mind. But just like back then, Nas really didn't have anything to worry about. Everything was going to be just fine.
Coming to Staten Island with Raekwon and coming to the lab where you was cooking up. It'd be a different person anytime, you know, different members of the crew there at different times, you know. And I got on a verbal intercourse joint. And I think at first Ray was like, I want you on the investigative reports.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like, yo, the beat was running.
That too, you know, you did a verse for the investigative reports. It's kind of lost into the templates of time, but he did the verse for investigative reports first, and then we switched it to
verbal intercourse. And I was like, yo, this joint is special. Like this joint right here on the classic Cuban Linx album, and Ghost in there doing what he do. So I always felt like it was a family thing, you know, like my cousins from over there do this thing. I just was able to identify with you and your team.
We got in the studio, RZA played the beat, Nas was liking it, and he was trying different rhymes to it. We would sit there and he'd say some of his shit, but he didn't really know which rhyme he wanted to say. And I was there being like his little coach, and I was like, that's it, son. He was like, that's it? I was like, nigga, that's it. But he had already went through 3 or 4 rhymes, and he couldn't really see which one he wanted it to be. But I heard it. Once it came out his mouth, I was like, that's it. This is 10 things you didn't know about Into the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. I'm gonna be dropping some knowledge on some facts about some of the songs, the gear used to make the beats, and the Kung Fu movie samples from the album. But make sure you make it to number 10, because after that, I got a special bonus, yo. So let's get started with the first fact, yo. I'm gonna pass it off to RZA from his video with Vanity Fair so he can break down the title.
Into the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers, which we actually took from Enter the Dragon, which another favorite movie of mine is Bruce Lee. We consider him to be a minor prophet.
But the 36 Chambers portion of the title comes from the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, of course. But what's more, in an MTV rockumentary on Wu-Tang Clan, they explain how 36 Chambers goes much deeper than just coming from a movie title.
King of 6 is 9 if you want to start doing the numbers.
You got 4 chambers in your heart.
9 planets.
You got 9 members in the clan on that album.
It's like 9 scientists or 9 doctors.
9 times 4 is 36.
You have 36 points within your body, 10 degrees apart. You know that's 360. You know that's a completion. 120 knowledge, 120 wisdom, 120 understanding.
That 64 is the same 64 as the 64 squares on the chessboard. You know what I'm saying? I could go on and on by 5 4.
A lot of people can't understand that, so we keep it simple.
Later in this video, we'll transition to talking about some of the great songs from this album, but before we get to that, let's talk about the album cover. First of all, if you want to know who's featured on the album cover, you and me both, because everybody's face is covered up. But what I do know is that Danny Hastings was the photographer for the 36 Chambers cover. In an interview with EgoTripLand.com, Hastings reveals that if every member of the clan would have been able to show up for the shoot, they would have shown their faces. But since not all of them were there, we had to use the stocking mask. But I'm like that. I think of solutions in the moment while we're going. I always like the work that I do that doesn't have the artist on the cover, using pictures and telling a story. I think my school for this was really rock and roll. Looking at all these rock and roll albums as a kid, they rarely showed the artist on the cover. And if they did, it was some great photography. The other 2 noteworthy things I got from this interview was about the Wu-Tang logo and how the cover was filmed at a church. I love their logo, so I was like, let's take this logo and just make a big gold logo. So I got an artist to carve it out of foam core and paint it gold. And then we got a crazy church location. It was called the Angel Orange Sands Foundation. I went and checked out the location and fell in love with it. They're still on Norfolk Street in the Lower East Side. Today, that place is gorgeous. You can't rent that place for less than 5 G's. Back then, this place was destroyed. There was like rocks coming out of the walls. It was just crazy. And according to Danny, this album's songs were recorded in Firehouse Studios, and he said it was the most disgusting studio he had ever seen. There were holes in the walls, chicken wings on the floor, empty 40-ounce bottles, and blunt wraps all over the place. But I say all that to say that in spite of, and maybe even because of all that dirtiness, some great music came out of that studio. Songs like Cream, Method Man, and Protect Your Neck. So let's start with the song that blew up and made the Wu-Tang Clan a household name, Cream.
Let me tell you something about this song.
the original title of it was called Lifestyle of the Mega Rich. And it had 8 minutes of lyrics. But when we got a chance to go into the studio and to record our album, I redug this track back up. And I told Raekwon and Inspector Deck that, yo, could y'all just take those lyrics you had and condense them? And they went right into it and dropped some of the craziest verses. But I knew the song wasn't complete. We needed the hook master, the man who had the witty hooks to come on, and that was Method Man.
But when I came in, because they had did the song before I was even there. I mean, I came the next day, I think, and RZA was like, we need a hook for this. And my boy Ray the Ruckus used to do these. He used to take words and, you know, break each letter down. What do they call those? Acronyms, there you go. He would make acronyms. He took Cream, he said, cash rules everything around me. Fly shit I ever heard in my life. So that popped in my head, and I was like, okay, let's just put some other words to it. And my boy Weebay, Hassan, played Weebay on The Wire.
Yeah.
When he was a kid, I used to hang out at his crib with my boy Each and play with his toys. He was just a little dude then. And his father had this record, Dollar Bill, y'all. Dollar Bill, y'all. Dollar, 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 dollar bill, y'all. Dollar bill, y'all. Dollar bill, y'all. Dollar, 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 dollar bill, y'all. That shit. There you go. And that's where the hook came from, right?
And when Method Man took that slang and put it into that phrase and into that melodic way he does it, it became an automatic smash. And it was this song right here, Cream, that took Wu-Tang from gold to platinum.
And while those Sirius XM and Power 106 Los Angeles clips show you where the concept and idea for Cream came from, in another Power 106 LA video, RZA gives us a tiny glimpse into the production process of the song.
Now the original sample comes from As Long As I Got You, a song that was produced for a band called the Charmels, produced by David Porter and Isaac Hayes. And the song never took off, you know, back then.
Right.
And when I got a chance to meet Isaac Hayes, and I said,
what'd you say?
I told him, yo, I sampled that song from the Charmels, As Long As I Got You. You know what he did?
What?
He hummed the piano. You mean boom, ba-da-dum, boom, 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 ba-da-dum, boom, boom.
Right.
I said, yeah, that one. But there's actually 3 other samples that's colliding with this sample.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those strings and all that. You know, I never said where it's coming from. I'm never gonna say it.
Say it!
No, they come back on
now
your
you're
head.
gonna say it.
They will come back.
Now you're gonna say it.
All I can say is that I specialized in mashing 4 or 5 sounds together to get one sound.
Next up, let's talk about the hook master and the song that shares his namesake, Method Man. In the Enter the Wu-Tang documentary from 1994, Method Man says that he didn't like this song.
I hated it. And to this day, I still hate the song, you know what I'm saying? But it paved the way a little something too. Rakim, Old Dirty, I guess the rest of the clan, they always said that it was fat and that it was gonna do well like that. They always knew. But I myself, I'm a humble warrior, baby. For real, man. I'm my worst critic, you know what I'm saying? I hear my own stuff, it could be banging to somebody else and I'll still be doubting.
Another thing that's interesting about the song Method Man is how he drew inspiration from so many different sources to write it. He discusses this further in this Drink Champs interview about the song.
So you didn't like it at first?
It was the rhymes.
Oh,
it was the rhymes. I thought they were a bit dated. But the updated part of it was the hook. Now, my mind works crazy. I don't know where I heard these records before, but it was etched in my head. Hey, you, get off my cloud. You don't know me, you don't know my stuff. Hey, you, get off my cloud. Who is that? Hey, you, get off of my cloud. Right. Now, see, now, I think that's Boosie Collins, but it was stuck in my head, right?
Yeah, okay.
So,
you just fucked me up.
So by the time I got to the METHOD, man, that was already etched in my head from, you know, METHODOLOVE, Big Hall and Oates.
Yeah.
Right?
Holy shit.
The man part came from Master Ace. One of my favorite records was Music Man. The Music Man. So it was METHOD, man.
So you put like 3 songs together and made your own shit.
A bunch of shit.
Wait, and 15 years old? You did that at 15 years old?
Yeah. And no, I was like 16, 17.
I mean, it's close enough.
The other hook part, I got fat bags. That's the Beatles. She's got
gotta take our hip hop card.
This is good.
He did a mashup.
Yo, holy shit.
And it's really crazy how he made all that work, because he's rapping about Fat Albert and Tootsie Roll Pops and famous peanut butter brands, but he put it in a hip-hop context and made it sound dope. And last but not least, and let's be clear, I could talk about every song on the album, but just so we're not here all day, let's just touch on Protect Your Neck for a little bit. And you'll know why the song is called Protect Your Neck once you watch this clip from the Enter the Wu-Tang documentary.
Wu-Tang represents a sword style of rhyming. Being that we are lyrical assassins, we are aware that the tongue is symbolic to the sword. Like when in motion, it produces wind. Just like when you hear the word woo, you hear wind. That's also the sound you hear when the swords are swinging on your neck. That's why we say protect your neck.
Inspector Deck is the first one to rap on Protect Your Neck, but did you know that it was actually his own song at first?
It was a track that all of us liked, right? But the track that we rhymed to was originally an Inspector Deck track called Blowing Up the Spot. We let everybody get on it and then strip the track. And then I rebuilt the track around everybody. So I caught the advantage right there to really feel it, because they killed it to the original track that we used. But when I had the chance to deal with the science of making sounds and putting the right sound, the right person's voice, and the right feeling, the right term, in other words, to remix it over, that's when it came out like that.
There were three main pieces of production equipment that were used to make 36 chambers. These are the SP1200, the Ensoniq EPS16, and the ASR10. Now I could nerd out on this for hours, but for the sake of time, I'll briefly go over the specs and basic functions of each production weapon of choice, and I'll let you know which machine or sampler was used to produce some of the songs from the album. First, we have the SP1200. VintageSynth.com describes it as having about 10 seconds of total sampling time, 12-bit sampling resolution, a 26.040 kilohertz sampling rate, and 256 kilobytes of memory. So as you can see, the SP1200 is a drum machine used by everybody from Q-Tip to Pete Rock to Lord Finesse, and we're using it to sample because the bit resolution and sampling rate was so low, it provided a gritty sound that's perfect for creating hip-hop songs. The Sweetwater.com article, The Gear Behind Wu-Tang Clan's Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers, explains how producers were able to solve the problem of having such limited sampling time. I'll link the article below, but just to simplify it for our purposes right now, basically what producers like Pete Rock and the RZA would do is speed up the record when they sampled it, but slow it back down once it's in the machine. And the slower the speed of the sample, the lower its sonic resolution will be. In other words, from a sonic standpoint, it's the polar opposite of replaying samples with live instruments like Dr. Dre was doing on The Chronic. The beats to Method Man and Can It Be All So Simple were made with the SP1200. The EPS16, while it also is a sampler, is very different from the SP1200. The Ensoniq EPS16 sampler workstation has a 61-note keyboard, 16-bit sampling resolution, and a variable sampling rate. It has a bunch of effects that could be added on samples like normalizing and splicing, and you could use MIDI with it too. RZA used it to produce 5 songs from 36 chambers, including Protect Your Neck and Cream. The third producer weapon of choice used on the album is the ASR10, or the Ensoniq Advanced Sampling Recorder 10. I never knew that's what that stood for, by the way. Also, I'd like to note that a lot of the information used to write the Sweetwater article came from Carlos C12 Best, who was one of the engineers on 36 chambers. But the ASR10 was a step up in technology from the EPS16 and the EPS16 Plus, which was also used on the album. It has a 16-track sequencer, 62 total effects, and a 999 measure limit to each of its 80 patterns, just to name a few. It also includes a flexible MIDI sequencer, so all these things gave RZA plenty of musical options. It was used on 6 tracks from 36 chambers, including The Mystery of Chess Boxing and Wu-Tang 7th Chamber Parts 1 and 2. And since we're talking about production gear, if I were to cover all the samples from the album, I might as well make a separate video. So for now, let's return to that Vanity Fair video from earlier so RZA can break down a couple of those samples.
Hey yo, this movie, The Master of the Flying Guillotine, yo. The Flying Guillotine became what I used as my choice of lyrical weapon. So when you hear the song Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to with, I start off and I be tossing and forcing. My style is awesome, causing more family feuds than Richard Dawson. And the survey said, you're dead. The fatal flying guillotine chops off your fucking head. So basically, Wu-Tang, our tongue is like a sword, but the guillotine could beat the sword, yo. And that's why I chose that to be my weapon. The Executioners from Shaolin, one of my favorite films of all time. And it follows the story of Hung Si Quan, who is the Hung Gar founder, fighting the priest Pa Mei, also known as the White Lotus.
My Tiger Kung Fu is better than yours.
If you listen to the Wu-Tang Clan song, Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to with, it starts off with Tiger Style.
Tiger Style.
Yeah. Well, that's from this movie.
Tiger Style.
5 Deadly Venoms, directed by Chang Che. This film right here is actually the film that made me become a Kung Fu fanatic. You could hear the sample in a song we got called The Mystery of Chess Boxing, where it starts off.
Tone style is immensely strong and immune to nearly any weapon. When it's properly used, it's almost invincible.
Watching this film, the Toad character is the one we all root for. He's the one that you wish you were, the one with the invincible iron skin.
But I highly recommend that you watch that full video. It's called Wu-Tang's RZA breaks down 10 Kung Fu films he's sampled. It will definitely blow your mind. Hey yo, we at number 10 now. And I promised you at the beginning of the video that I had a special bonus, y'all. And that's coming up next, but first listen to this fact. Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers, and A Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders came out on the same day, November 9th, 1993. That was almost obvious, yo. All my hip-hop heads out there, y'all knew that already. And you can see that your progress bar on the video is at the halfway mark. But I bet you didn't know that you're about to see a whole nother video, yo. I told you Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. Hello. This is 10 things you didn't know about Midnight Marauders on Back to the Boom Bap. I will be enhancing your phones and TVs with certain facts that you may find interesting. Large Professor, Pharrell, and the 90s group Jade will be discussed on this program. We hope that you will find our presentation concise, well-researched, and just right. Thanks. The Tour Guide. Over this Steve Biko instrumental, let me introduce you to the tour guide from Midnight Marauders. I did my rendition of it in the intro, and if you've heard Midnight Marauders, you'll know she shows up multiple times throughout the album. But you probably didn't know anything else about her. Well, according to uprocks.com, her name is Laurel Dan, and she's a former Jive Records A&R, which is the label that Tribe was signed to. And unlike the music you have to listen to when you're taking care of business and waiting for a representative, every time this lady came back around, she was saying something thought-provoking. And speaking of provoking thought, this is gonna really blow your mind. If you remember, when the album starts, the tour guide says, "Hello, this is your Midnight Marauder program. I'm on the front of your cover." Well, in an interview with MTV, Q-Tip said the tour guide is meant to embody hip-hop. So that means that the lady with black, red, and green all over on those Tribe album covers represents hip-hop. Tip said, and our lady in front of it, we figured the lady is hip-hop. We use this lady as a symbol of our music, a beautiful woman. The award tour bass line. When I discovered this fact a few years ago, it blew me away. The award tour bass line is inspired by the bass line to Don't Walk Away by Jade. I say inspired because Q-Tip didn't sample it, but it's so similar that after I show this to you, these two different songs will remain connected in your mind from here on out. Alright, so I'm going to isolate the bass lines of both songs so you can hear them better. Okay, this is Don't Walk Away. Alright, and this is the award tour bass line. You see what I mean? They're super similar. And Q-Tip really did confirm this. It's not speculation. Here's him talking about it on the J Period mixtape, The Abstract Best, Volume 1.
I remember there was this record by this girl group called Jade, and the record was called Don't Walk Away. Don't walk away, boy. I'm thinking of you. That song? Yeah. That joint inspired a Award Tour, because when I heard that bass line there, I was like, yo, that bass line is so mean. And I was DJing back then, I used to play it in the party. I used to see how people used to react when that shit was just knocking. So I was like, yo, I gotta get a record and kind of take that influence. So I just came up with the, you know, to the Weldon Irving. You know, so that record kind of, in a weird way, inspired it, because I just wanted to have that hump. I'm like a little scientist, so it's about sonics, watching how people react to certain things, and how I could like take something and apply some sort of method.
The album cover. This has to be one of my favorite album covers of all time. It's up there with Doggy Style and Liquid Swords in my opinion, because I'm really big on how things look visually. Looking at my copy of the cover right now, I can name probably like 90% of the people on the front and back of the cover. A site called The Boombox wrote an article that states that there are 71 hip-hop artists on the Midnight Marauders cover. In an interview with Yo MTV Raps, the late great Phife Dawg said, "We try to get everybody that we can to get on this album cover, trying to promote hip-hop unity." And did you know that there are 3 different covers to this album? Each cover has a red, green, or a black border. The black border covers are the most rare. For 30 years, I've looked at those clocks and have not understood why they belong on this album cover. But now I know what time it is. Literally. Check the time. The time on all the clocks are set to midnight. The most loved kid analogy. The title of this segment will make more sense once I tell you that in this Red Bull Music Academy interview, Q-Tip was asked about the low-end theory versus Midnight Marauders debate. He goes in depth in comparing the 2 albums sonically and gives his answer to the question of which classic is better.
I mean, the debate is always between low-end theory and Midnight Marauders. And I mean, sonically, I mean, how do you compare the two? Because, you know, they both have this impact. There was a lecture with Bob Power at the Academy several years ago, and he talks about how with Midnight Marauders it was meant to be grittier in conceptually, and he felt that in a way he kind of messed that up because it sounds even more state of the art in a lot of ways.
No, I don't think that was the case. I think Midnight Marauders was meant to have that sheen that it has. You know what I mean? Like I thought that it was meant to, if anything, it was meant to be boomier. Yeah. You know, in the tradition of low end, but it was always meant to have like a nice sheen to that record. Because if you listen to Low End Theory, like a lot of that sizzle, that 15K stuff, like for that 8K stuff, for all the engineers in here, like it's really hard to hear it. Maybe on the remastering, but when you listen to the original, like a lot of that top is muddled. We did a lot of that record on the Neve, like on what everybody calls the John Lennon Neve, because they had that in Battery. So we did a lot of Low End Theory on that. But when we got to Midnight Marauders, we were on the SSL, and it had a little bit more sizzle up there. So it just has the top, it just has a little bit more sheen. Yeah.
The drums are louder too.
Yeah, the drums are louder. Yeah. Which is good.
When you sit back and listen to these two, you know, can you compare them? Do you have a favorite?
It's like a kid. Do people who have kids have favorites? Anybody? Oh boy. Nah, I guess they're their own thing. You know what I mean? They're their own thing. There's definitely, of course, similarities, but I don't know. It was hard to say. You know.
The Midnight Marauders meaning. I'm guessing that a Tribe Called Quest figured that we would be wondering what the title of the album meant as we were listening to it, because it's revealed to us on the album by the tour guide. At the end of a war tour, she returns and says, 7 times out of 10, we listen to our music at night. Thus spawned the title of this program. The word maraud means to loot. In this case, we maraud for ears. The One Mic Marauders. Midnight Marauders got 4 mics in the Source. For those that don't know, the hip-hop magazine The Source did what's called the Record Report, where they would review hip-hop albums. The review had a rating system with 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. And it was written by award-winning filmmaker, producer, and writer Dream Hampton. This analysis was penned at a time when the Source magazine was still relevant and what number of mics you received really meant something. And with that being said, in my opinion, as ironic as this will sound, Tribe got marauded because the Source stole one of their mics. I'll link the review below so you can read it, but Hampton really didn't say anything negative about the album, other than she felt it was missing the late MC Hood and that she didn't like the tour guide. And there may have been someone totally different who decided what rating the album should get. And I think this may have been one of the albums that the Source retroactively awarded 5 mics after the fact. However, none of these things justifies them giving 4 mics to a classic album that I've been listening to since I was 12 years old, which was 30 years ago. So let me stop boring you with this rant and tell you.
A Tribe Called Quest consists of 4 members: Fife Dog, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, Q-Tip, and Jarobi. A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y.
The Keep It Rollin' story. Let's hear the story of the song Keep It Rollin' from the lens of the live guy with glasses, the legendary Large Professor. Large Pro is the only guest feature on the album, and this song is one of only 2 songs not credited as produced by a Tribe Called Quest. This song was produced by Large Professor, and 8 Million Stories was produced by Skef Anselm. In an article from Complex.com where he was breaking down classic records he produced, Large Professor spoke about the making of Keep It Rollin'. That's when Tip had his equipment in Fife's basement. We used to just go through records. We would go record shopping, go to Fife's basement, throw the needles on the records, whatever. So we would go through our batch of the stuff we got that day. So there was this joint and I looped it up. And my boy Tony Rome and Yusef, they had looped it up a while ago. And I was like, yeah, that shit is hot. But I never really knew what it was. But then I threw that record up there. I was like, oh shit, I remember this joint. Then Tip was like, yo, that's dope. Then I threw the drums to it and it was cool. And Large Professor was just so laid back that he just made the track and didn't really think nothing of it. I didn't think they were gonna use it. It was crazy. He was like, yo, I'm in the studio and I got that joint that you looped up. Come on, let's rhyme over it. And you know, we were going record shopping together while he was working, so it was like I would hear the work he was doing in his sessions. He'd come through like, yo, check this out, and play me lyrics to go. And I'd be like, yo, that shit is crazy. Some people think there are too many podcasts. I think there are too many bad podcasts. A bad podcast has a bunch of people laughing and yelling, talking over their guests, and talking about nothing. A good podcast inspires you, causes you to think, and maybe makes you want to change aspects of your life. The producer who missed midnight. Pharrell Williams from the Neptunes loves A Tribe Called Quest. Pharrell used to travel to see Tribe in concert all the time, which is how he got on their radar in the first place. In a Drink Champs interview with the Tribe Called Quest, Q-Tip talks about how Pharrell almost had a verse on the Midnight Marauders album.
Yeah, right.
Man, you remember he was supposed to be on Beach Round the Line.
Come on, go talk to the mic.
Yeah. Pharrell was on got a verse
on Midnight Marauders actually.
But then he came back for Beats when Tammy did once again.
Yeah,
I coached him through the joint on Battery.
Yeah, the first joint though with with Pharrell was Midnight Marauders, and we was like, yo, I was like, I fuck with this nigga, so I was like, yo, come to the studio. So it'd be a bunch of these dudes they come to the studio. He would be one of them that would come to the studio and
In
shit.
Virginia?
No, he would come from VA to New York.
To New York?
He just started working with Teddy.
Yeah. Wow.
Teddy Riley.
Because on the low, a lot of people don't know that he ghost produced Bumps and
Rum Shaker. Yeah, Rum Shaker and all that shit. Yeah. So he was like on a come up with all that shit. So he actually first started. He put a verse up on Midnight Marauders.
But in this next clip, you'll get a better understanding on why I didn't make the album.
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if it weren't for Q-Tip. That guy still, to me, is like everything. Like, he would just say hi, and I'd be like, ah! They let us in, and you know, he gave me a shot to rhyme on one of the songs, and I wanted it so bad that, like, as I'm like rhyming, my voice went out. It was like hoarse, and of course it sounded like trash, so it didn't go on the album. And I should have been devastated, but I was just like, whoa! I was just in the studio with Tip.
The Chase Part 2 remix?
But Khan's actually, his first verse was on the flip of, you know, the Chase Part 2 off of Marauders. A lot of people say that Khan's was like Beast Ron's Light, but it was actually him and No Name, you know what I'm saying, off of that shit. So
remember how I told you that Pharrell Williams could have been on Midnight Marauders, but he didn't make the album? Well, Q-Tip's cousin Consequence is on the album, on the Chase Part 2. Well, sorta. He's on the remix, and he sounds hella young, cause this was 93, 3 years before he would technically make his actual debut on Tribe's Beats, Rhymes, and Life album. I'll play a little bit of it for you.
I hit him with the boom, stick him, I hit him, it's the brother named Quince, not to fake him, but I still lick him. Still bust that shorty, now you know who got the prop. Consequence, AG flow, you know it just don't stop. Cause the moment was born to breed, I was born to smoke weed, indeed. I smooth played and then I popped the seed in you. Yeah baby, I took you to the venue, and if my name was Coco, I still couldn't be into you. Cause you got snuffed by the crooked too, bandit, who never got stranded. Been kicking the funky lyrics that the transformers landed on earth. Had to in my bottle, baby, bar, now I'm grading my birth. Ain't got a bag of blue funk, but a bag of green skunk. So if you want it, motherfucker, knuckle up.
The 3-bar loop. I'll be honest and say, whenever I find out that a loop is in a different time signature other than the standard 4/4 time signature, it always fascinates me. The reason why is that I can't tell the difference. I understand that some people can, but producers like Tip, who have done this, have a way of expressing themselves artistically where they can make things work that don't seem like they should work. If you've been watching this long, first of all, thank you so very much. And just stick with me for a couple more minutes and listen as we return to his Red Bull Music Academy interview where Chairman Mayo and Q-Tip discuss the song Lyrics to Go and talk about 3-bar loops.
I mean, I said that I feel like this song is kind of representative of a lot of different things that are characteristics of your style. I mean, I guess one thing is it's a 3-bar loop, and you've done that a few times in your career, and I wonder what sort of vibe that gives off, do you believe? Or was that something that had just sort of happened? I mean, Electric Relaxation, the Mobb Deep track, Drink Away the Pain. There's another one I'm blanking on right now, but from Midnight Marauders, is it Lyrics to Go? Is a 3-bar loop. What when you find something like that and you decide that that's what you're going to use, what sort of energy do you think that puts out?
I don't know. You know what? I just like the. I just like to kind of. To me, nothing pronounced. Well, I feel like that those things pronounce the rhythm even more because it's so kind of like, you know, I don't know, left of center of what the 4/4 thing that's happening. So just like putting it against it, it just makes it to me stick out more, makes it more pronounced, but in a good way. And it also soffits the 4/4 rhythm or whatever, you know, that even number that's there on the bottom. It just soffits it even more when you have whatever harmonic or melodic thing that you have going on top of it happening in its odd meter. Yeah, I just think it's interesting. And then you know, for me to be kind of carrying on in an even meter against all of that, it's just an interesting cocktail to me. And I didn't really hear anybody in rap really approach it that way, you know what I'm saying, or do anything like that, or mess with time signatures like that, you know.
And in that same interview, they also discussed Q-Tip's work with Nas when he produced One Love for Illmatic. And if you want to know more about that story, then click on the video that's on your screen called 10 Things You Didn't Know About Illmatic. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in that next video. Peace. For this 10 Things You Didn't Know About Muddy Waters video, I'll be revealing some facts about the making of some of the songs on the album. So this story can't get told without talking about Eric Sermon and Rockwilder. But we'll also be briefly discussing Nas, Warren G, and Pras from the Fugees. So put your earbuds in or turn up the volume on your TV because this is about to be a good one. If you watch the other videos in this series, you'll know that I usually like to begin with revealing facts about the meaning of album titles and or the inspiration behind the album covers of classic hip-hop albums. So let's talk about why Redman is covered in mud on the cover of this album. If you look up the Muddy Waters album on Genius.com, you'll find Redman saying, "Muddy Waters is my album. I came into the light on this one. I left some of those drugs alone and started smoking more weed, and I was in the gym. I had a kid and I started to slow down. So I was getting grown on this album, finding myself and getting more in tune with the rap game." What Redman is talking about in that quote is he's talking about the album that came before Muddy Waters, There Is a Dark Side. The There Is a Dark Side album cover has Redman neck deep in the ground. Like, his only thing sticking out is his head. So it's basically representing at that time in his life, he was on a lot of hard drugs, not just weed, because you know he ain't never gonna stop smoking weed, but I guess he was in a dark time in his life, and then the Muddy Waters album cover just represents him coming out of that, so that's why he's covered in mud. Tell me why I didn't know there's a version of Is He For Real with 2 verses. And to jog your memory, or if you didn't know, here's the first verse.
Yo, somebody light the fuse so I can bring bad news to all these crews who can't NBA jam with the shoes. That double shot Hennessy got my mind tripping. Drunk enough to start a campaign on kicking. With my Keith who give assists like Scott Pimpin. For MC Derelict whipping. Cap a cock twisting. Drop your money in the slot if your block don't got a real representative cop for action like my block got. Rhyme skills 3 1/4 for them drop tops. Your caliber straight up who pop glocks. While I react, kick facts on funky tracks. Give me room like the Hyatt while I run this jungle habitat. And if I snap, get that monkey off my back. Me and Mike's together roll tighter than Slick and Vance right. Peace to the all MCs that can feel me. And if your hun ain't jumping now, then later on she will be. These punk MCs weak kill me. They don't thrill me. Come to Jersey and get jacked like Jill G.
And after hearing the second verse, I'm not gonna lie, I still like the first verse better. But I just think it's dope to know that it exists and that we get to have something extra from the album. And did you know that the Welcome interlude samples Summer Madness by Kool and the Gang? I didn't know it until I read it on Genius.com and on WhoSampled.com. The way Eric flipped the sample, it was never obvious to me. And it's just so crazy how, just like Is He For Real, it's a short track, but he's still rapping like his life depended on it. Another interesting fact about the Welcome interlude track is that on the video version of Pick It Up, this is the song that comes on at the end. Like, in the 90s, rappers used to do that a lot. They used to come out with a single, and on the video, it would be like either split in half or like on the end of the video, you would hear a snippet of another song from the album. The song Case Closed is the only time I know of this producer rapping, and based on how he sounds, I'm not sure why he didn't choose to rap more. If you don't know who I'm talking about, I'm referring to Rockwilder. He's the producer of this song and is also featured as a member of the group Crossbreed. Rockwilder has made hits for everybody from Janet Jackson to Destiny's Child and Missy, and Red and Meth even named the song after him. Rockwilder had the second verse on the song. When I first heard Superman Lover 3, the beat on the first half of it sounded very familiar. That's because, as I mentioned in my video on Illmatic, it has the same sample as Nas's One Love. The song samples the Heath Brothers song Smilin' Billy Sweet Part 2. But as it turns out, according to an annotation on Genius.com about this song, Eric Sermon sampled it after he heard it on Nas's One Love, as opposed to it being a random coincidence. The first time he used it was on Alfonso Hunter's song Quiet Time, but once Redman heard that, he wanted to use it too.
I had more story for him to Superman Lover 3, and I think Superman Lover 3 is one of my top Superman lovers because the beat was nuts. Alfonso Hunter used that on his album first. We listened to Alfonso Hunter album because he did it, and I was like, I love that last record, and I was like, why don't we just do a Superman Lover to it? And he got the fucking shit, and we just did it.
And I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that Whatever Man is one of my favorite tracks on the album. So I was interested in hearing what the song's producer Eric Sermon had to say about making the song. Here's what he said in Complex on their piece where he broke down classic records he produced. That was from my album, For Double or Nothing. It was my song. He liked it a lot, and he was singing some of my verses. I can't remember right now which parts were mine originally, but he was keeping a lot of my lines and then adding his. He took the full song of mine and kept adding to it, and for some reason, he kept that one part with me rhyming. He goes on to say, and then me and my friend were doing the bum bum ba-dum diddy diddy dum bum bum. That was all me, but the Whatever Man title was all his. That was what he wanted to do. He liked the record. It wasn't a big deal for me. He liked it, so I gave it to him. And there's also a Whatever Man remix produced by the legendary Pete Rock. You won't find it on an official 12-inch of the single, but Pete Rock actually remixed it. It's not a blend of an old Pete track with the Redman acapella. Check it out.
Your boombox better form a unit, cause I leave your circus overworked. Word bar, niggas front like they want it, but I be in the 500 with these steadily getting blunted. Damn, nigga, you cool at what you spittin', so why you holding the blunt so long, politicking? I ace the blunts with the technician of electrician. I don't got a pot to pissin', but still spend my lives on hydroglycerin. I keep it live, no jive, rolling Dutchess, that's masters like the Furious 5. I keep your crew jiggy eye, for bitches acting dumb. Why not? Why we talk on this?
Do What You Feel is the first Red and Meth collab since the How High original version and remix, and like most of their collabs, they don't disappoint. It was produced by Praz and Jerry Wonder of Fugees fame, and in this Rap City interview, Redman briefly details the making of this song.
It's called, what made you work with that again? It's called Do What You Feel. Hey, I didn't want to make a different How High joint, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to make I just wanted that to rock on my album, you know what I'm saying? Right. I ain't wanted to make no spectacular, you know what I'm saying, platinum single like How High was. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to do a little, you know what I'm saying? I do a little, come on and rock.
He also got a hip-hop quotable in the Source magazine for his second verse on this song. The second verse is the one that goes like, you'll suck my out of animosity. The velocity will fly that head and freeze your camps like potteries. And give lobotomies to all the rap colonies and shut your $1 million investment to economy. And possibly might be the one in black leather, name tag saying caution when wet by the track wetter, the hash spreader, I love that grimish, even my girl did grimish, 2 million I went back with her, 3 years for carrying a loaded handgun, but it's forever winter, blah when he lands one to your cranium. That red dot on your forehead is not cause you Arabian, watch what you say to him. You're caught up in a tight situation. I should start erasing your whole organization for making whack tunes while my whole platoon rocks the basement. You couldn't come close if I gave you my booking agent. I could keep going if I wanted to. He murders that. And alright, there's a song on the album called It's Like That, My Big Brother. That song features K solo, but there's also an alternate version of that song that's called That's How It Is, It's Like That, where it's only Redman rapping on it. I don't think I ever knew that the Pick It Up remix was produced by Warren G. Warren G is a slept-on producer that doesn't get talked about enough. But with that being said, I do still like the beat to the OG version better. And Warren used the same sample as the Drew Hill In My Bed remix, which is definitely a banger. I wonder who found the sample first, him or Jermaine Dupri? Me and the homie Lou Gilly from Philly, who requested this video, consider Muddy Waters to be a classic. And I'm sure you do too. But what about Redman himself? What are his thoughts on his own album? Well, now's the time to hear what Redman has to say about Muddy Waters.
Okay, Muddy Waters, it's seems to be a fan favorite. That's why you're making a sequel, right?
Yeah, but Muddy Waters was that album that brought me out that ugliness. Cause I ain't named the album, finished naming the albums yet, but it brought me out that ugliness of There's a Dark Side.
Yeah.
I was There's a Dark Side. I was out there, but Muddy Waters, I got some enlightenment, and Eric Sermon gave me some more enlightened beats. Cause There's a Dark Side, I did it on my own. He gave me like 4 beats, and I did the rest of the beats, so I was zoned out.
When Get Rich or Die Tryin came out over 20 years ago now, people lost their minds. Literally everybody and their mamas and their grandmamas know about this album. But despite what you think you know, I'm gonna still give you 10 things you didn't know about Get Rich or Die Tryin. I'm Mr. Boom Bap, the Boom Bap enthusiast, and I'll be revealing facts about Heat, 21 Questions, and In the Club. And keep watching until the end because I'll throw in a bonus fact about the album as well. And some of you may be thinking, why is he doing this album? This album isn't a boom bap album. You know what? I'll give you that. But it's a dope album and he didn't flood it with hit singles like I would have expected. It's got some joints on there. But speaking of hit singles, let's get started by talking about In the Club. Now I'll be honest and say that if I never hear that song again, it'll be too soon. But that doesn't stop me from being interested in how the song was made. For instance, I was able to find out that DJ Quick and Denon Porter claim to have contributed drums to In the Club. Quick doesn't want anyone to forget that the drums you hear on In the Club come from him. And I don't blame him. If drums I made ended up on a commercial record, I want my credit too. One time when being interviewed by Village Voice, DJ Quick said, they don't even know why they like that song In the Club by 50 Cent. They just know that they've heard it more than any other song and it never gets old somehow. Well, it's because I helped Dr. Dre with the drums. I gave him those claps and that kick. He acknowledges that now. I used to say for years, you guys don't understand. I gave Dr. Dre those drum sounds. And Denon Porter says his drums are on it too. And that makes sense. He's been knowing Dre for many years now. So I don't know. Maybe Dr. Dre used drums from them both and stacked them or spread them out across different parts of the track. But here's what Mr. Porter had to say about it in the OK Player piece, The Secret History of 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Tryin. I think the drum sounds were mine. I was working on When the Music Stops in the other room for M's album. We were just passing around zip disk. I know that clap and kick. I was trying to replicate Rockwilder's Somehow Some Way for Organized Confusion. And I think that was on one of the zip disks. Dre would come in, and when he put his hands on it, it's like magic. A sound that you might make, he'll turn it into magic. It was supposed to be a D12 beat. And that's the other thing, the last thing Denon said. In the Club was actually intended to be a D12 song. According to thethings.com, Dr. Dre and Mike Elizondo made the beat for a D12 song that was going to be on the 8 Mile soundtrack.
It was a D12 version, and it was, I'm not going to say it was terrible, man. Respect to them, but bizarre. It just wasn't, you didn't think that record would even matter once you heard that, right?
But Dre ended up playing the beat for 50. He immediately started writing to it. He had the lyrics done in an hour, and they finished up the song in the same night. And they say that hindsight is 20/20 because even though we all know now that In the Club was a runaway hit, in the things.com article on facts about Get Rich or Die Tryin, they talked about how Eminem, 50, Jimmy Iovine, Paul Rosenberg, and Chris Lighty decided to flip a coin to decide the album's lead single. We couldn't decide on the first single from Get Rich or Die Tryin. Eminem wrote on his Genius page in 2015. It was going to be either If I Can't or In the Club. We were torn, so me, 50, Paul, Chris Lighty, and Jimmy Iovine decided to flip a coin. I honestly can't picture If I Can't as the first single. I like it better than In the Club, but it sounds like more of a second or third single to me. And before we talk about the song Heat, let me tell you one more thing about In the Club. I bet you didn't know that Lloyd Banks came up with the In the Club hook. That's right. Sha Money XL talks about it in that OK Player article I mentioned earlier. He says, truth be told, Lloyd Banks wrote that hook. That whole part was a verse in one of Banks' songs. Find me in the club, bottle full of bub. 50 heard it and knew how to make it a hook and make it hot.
Banks had this record where we already recorded it, and it was probably going to go on a mixtape. And on the song, he had this line, was in the club, bottle full of bub, and he had that whole line. Fifth always remembered that shit for some whatever reason, and he was like, nope, this is a hook. And he took that line from the song and made it that hook. You know, Banks never got the publishing credit or the check, because that's a big one.
Another song that 50 made hot was a song called Heat, because what a lot of people don't know is Heat was originally Rakim's song. From the secret history of Get Rich or Die Tryin, Denon Porter says, Heat, the joint with the guns in it, was a Rakim song. There's a version with Rakim that was incredible. The only records ever recorded for Ra was me and Dre, so I was hurt when Dre gave him the song. I learned something that day. He said, this is the creative balance. Yes, what Rakim did was incredible, but it just made sense for 50. And another fact about this song that shouldn't be surprising is the gun sound effects were made with real guns. And 10 things you didn't know about 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Tryin by RapUp.com. 50 Cent told MTV News, we got the chance to do theatrics with the skits, but the actual gun clicks and stuff was real. We had them with us, so we just go in the booth and use it instead of going with the sound effect. But 50 put the guns away for 21 Questions because he knew he wanted to do a song for the ladies. So who's better to draw inspiration from than the rapper that the ladies love? So, LL Cool J inspired 21 Questions. The RapUp.com quoted 50 from a 2013 MTV News interview saying, I really made that record because I was in the car and LL Cool J came on. The girl next to me was all into it. It was a soft record, but she was so into the record that I said, I want to make something that makes girls respond like that to me. And of course, the beat to 21 Questions was produced by Midi Mafia, but the producers of 21 Questions weren't making the beat for 50 Cent. Dirty Swift from Midi Mafia was interviewed by Hip Hop DX and is quoted as saying, I remember making the track and thinking, man, this would be dope. I didn't know who it would be dope for, but I just knew it was gonna go. It was just one of those tracks I had a feeling about. It kind of sat around for a while, and 2 different people had it on beat CDs. This was about a year before they signed the deal with Shady, but they were really excited about it. You also probably didn't know that 50 Cent sang the hook to 21 Questions at first. Dirty Swift goes on to say, when he did the Shady deal and Dre got a hold of it, they ended up putting Nate Dogg on it. It took me a while to get used to that version because I was so used to the one with 50 singing the hook. It was actually kind of a dream come true to have Nate Dogg sing a hook on the track I made. What producer wouldn't want that? That was real big for us. To have the late great Nate Dogg singing on a song you produced is a big deal indeed. But even with that being the case, the song almost didn't come out because Dr. Dre didn't like 21 Questions.
Dr. Dre didn't want 21 Questions, which was a hit, to be on Get Rich or Die Tryin'.
Yeah, he said, I don't know why you want it. Why I wanted the record. Because I'm like, damn, man, like I gotta do all these fucking push-ups.
Right, for nothing.
Yeah. The girls are like
yeah. Yeah, I got the dudes. Like, come on.
Yeah, but he was like he knew, Dre would say, I know what this is. NWA is just one member. So it's just, we didn't do that. Like, they didn't have to reach to make a commercial record or anything. It sounded like a commercial record and that's just in his DNA. Like on his path, he's like, yo, we don't need that.
Sha Money XL gives more details on this fact in OK Player's The Secret History of Get Rich or Die Tryin' article. Dre wasn't with it at first. We did a sit down that I have on videotape. We went through 30 tracks that 50 did. We was at Jimmy Iovine's house. Records was getting chopped off. 50 was fighting for stuff. Thanks to Nate Dogg's manager, Rod McGrew, a real classy OG, he helped me get the Barry White sample cleared. I was having problems getting that cleared. That record almost didn't make it. So I asked around and Rod said, I know Barry. This is when Barry was about to pass, and this was the last record that he cleared alive before it would go to his estate. That was the last record he approved. And while we're on the subject, since the sample was cleared, I'll tell you what it is. It's a Barry White song called It's Only Love Doing Its Thing. If you go and listen to that song, whether you Google it and go to whosample.com or something like that, all Midi Mafia sample was like 1 or 2 seconds of the beginning of the song. It's a really clever sample flip. I wish I could play it for you, but I'm trying to be more careful now as far as dealing with copyright. Also, the casual rap fan probably doesn't know that 50 Cent had a whole album before Get Rich or Die Tryin'. It's called Power of the Dollar. He was on Columbia and they dropped him and never released the album once he got shot 9 times. But here's the bonus fact I want you to know. Your Life's on the Line is the only song from Power of the Dollar that made it to Get Rich or Die Tryin'. When discussing this fact on things.com, they said that the song Life's on the Line was released in 1999, peaked at number 37 on the Billboard Hot Rap Singles chart, and was re-released in 2003 as a bonus track on 50's album. So comment below either to tell me what you learned from this video or give another fact that people may not know about the album.
Fugees The Score.
And now for our feature presentation.
So now it's time to tell you 10 things you didn't know about the score. And I thought it would be fun to just stick to the singles. Fugees La, Ready or Not, Cowboys, and you know we gotta talk about Killing Me Softly. So the lights are getting dim and the curtain is opening in the theater because it's time to settle the score. Alright, let's kick things off with Fugees La. Fugees La is a classic Fugees song, but Fat Joe was given the Fugees La beat first. That's crazy to think about now because I really don't hear him on this. When the producer of the track, Salam Remy, was interviewed by Pitchfork about the score, he tells the whole story. Going into '95, I was working on music for Spike Lee's Clockers. I had the Fugees come down where I was working, and we did a song that was supposed to be on the score, but never got on there, called Project Heads. During the session for Project Heads, which I was also trying to get into Clockers, there was a beat I had made for Fat Joe that Lauren heard. She was like, look, where's that Fat Joe beat? Fat Joe's music was dope back in like '95, but I still don't hear him on this. So I'm glad they got it. And that's not all. The song Fugees La took a long time to complete. The main reason why is because of Lauryn Hill's dedication to her craft. In that same Pitchfork interview, Salam says, Lauryn went through singing a lot of different things, from Never Dream You Leave in Summer, which she would later sing on Common's Retrospect for Life, to Shaka Khan records, to all types of stuff. This part of the creative process is so interesting to me. She knew it needed a hook, and she knew she wanted it to be inspired by music from the past. So she just kept trying until she landed on the right one, which was of course the Tina Marie joint. And as Remy continues with the story, he also tells us about the recording process for her verse. When she finally hit that ooh la la la, that was the hook. During that process, Lauryn probably recorded her 16 bars every day for 7 days straight. She came back in every day to redo it because she's that level of a perfectionist. I don't know if anybody else will agree with me, but when I hear stories like this, Lauryn Hill's legacy is solidified. So now, if you're ready, or if you're not, that's the next song we're going to talk about, Ready or Not. This song is another case of Lauryn Hill using old soul music for the hook. This time it was Ready or Not by the Delphonics. It's just wild how she sang the exact same words, but the Fugees song sounds completely different. I love that bridge part where she uses that other part from the song and flips it to, you can run away from these styles I got, oh baby, hey baby, cause I got a lot, oh yeah. The video was really dope too. And did you know that the Ready or Not video was a $1.3 million video? If you compare that figure to Hollywood films, that would be the budget of an indie film that some popular influencer would post on YouTube. But back then, rap videos were not that expensive. It would be the equivalent of a $200 million budget Michael Bay film to spend $1 million on a rap video in '96 or '97. And according to Genius.com, Pras felt like the money was worth it. Pras told Vibe magazine, people want to see drama, man. You figure, a kid paid $16 for your CD? Let him see a good video. And this song brings out real emotions in people, even from when it was first being recorded. The engineer cried while Lauryn was recording the Ready or Not hook. Jerry Wonder confirms this in a Complex.com article. When Lauren came in, I remember it was me, her, and the engineer. And Lauren came in and she started that hook and my engineer started crying. No joke, the engineer started crying. Because if you listen to that hook and there was no rhyme on it, it was just the music. And the way she did the hook, she just special, man. Special. She bodied it. And like I said at the beginning of the video, we're gonna get to Killing Me Softly. But before I do that, we're gonna talk about the song that had a video that was like a continuation to the Killing Me Softly video. Cowboys, which features members of the Outsiders like Pace One, Young Z, and Rod Digger. In 1996, Rod Digger was a new artist, and though she would become a member of the Flip Mode Squad, her first crew was the Outsiders. And according to Digger, in that Pitchfork article about the Fugees I mentioned earlier, in Rod Digger's mind, Cowboys was a battle of the sexes. Back then, with all Jersey artists, most of us rolled in crews, and we were either battling each other or doing songs together. I don't think anybody really looked at the Fugees as a battle crew, and at that time, Young Z from the Outsiders was on a promo tour with them. That alliance brought us together. The crazy thing is, we actually all paired off to write the song in the same way we do on the record. John Forte was added on later. I got in this little huddle with Lauren, and I just remember our goal was to be better than the guys. I don't know if I can say they achieved that. The whole song is dope, but when I think about Cowboys, I think about how Young Z and John Forte went off on that song. But anyway, Rod Digger was 4 months pregnant when they shot the video for Cowboys. After we did the song, we didn't think too much else about it. They told us they were shooting a video for it. When we did the video, I was 4 months pregnant and nobody knew. It still didn't register that Cowboys was making the album until one day I was in the car with Lauren and she's playing the soon to be released album and we're on it. To be honest, we didn't know that record was gonna blow to that magnitude. Once it started selling and selling and selling though, it was like, oh wow, this is big. Y'all know I can't get out of here without talking about Killing Me Softly. This is the Fugees song that everybody knows, and some people probably think of it as a Lauryn Hill song. And those same people probably don't know that Killing Me Softly is a cover of a cover. We know that Killing Me Softly is a cover of Roberta Flack's version, but did you know that Roberta Flack's version is a cover too? Roberta was inspired to cover it after hearing the original version by Lori Lieberman.
I had gone out to California to do a special. Got on the plane in LA to come back to New York by myself. And I opened the brochure that describes what music you can select. And there's a song, Killing Me Softly, with his song. And I listened to it about 5 times before the plane landed.
And while we're in this Killing Me Softly metaverse, Roberta Flack from the Inside the Fugees The Score article by Pitchfork stated that the Fugees wanted to change the lyrics to Killing Me Softly to send a political message. They wanted to change the lyrics to Killing Me Softly to make the song about anti-drugs and anti-poverty. They were all about politics. Given their name and all, the refugees, it made sense. It was more Norman Gimbel and Charlie Fox, the songwriters behind Killing Me Softly with this song, that wanted their song not to be changed. I feel that the meaning of the song changes depending upon the singer and depending upon the listener. They gave the song a new meaning and exposed it to a new generation. They invented a new version of the song, using some musical ideas from my version. Since Roberta mentioned musical ideas, now is the perfect time to dig deeper into some of the ideas that were used on this song. Ideas like the fact that it was both Salaam Remi and Praz's idea to use the drums from Bonita Applebaum by A Tribe Called Quest. Salaam said, at one point, Lauren hit me and said she was doing a singing record on the album and wanted me to produce it. But at that time, they really didn't have the budget. So Praz calls me one day like, yo, let me ask you something. If we want to do Killing Me Softly, how would you approach that song? I was like, I would kind of do it like Bonita Applebaum. He said, oh, that was the same thing I was thinking. I'll call you right back. And there you go. They literally made Bonita Applebaum into Killing Me Softly. And it's that simple. The song is so stripped down, but it works. It's mainly just those Bonita Applebaum drums, the bass line, and Lauren's vocals. And as far as Lauren's vocals go, although the song has 3 main elements, Lauren's parts are where things get a little more complex. Wyclef was interviewed for the book Hip Hop Hits, The Producers Speak by Jake Brown, and I hope he was being hyperbolic when he said this, but there's 3,000 Lauryn Hills on Killing Me Softly. What made that record incredible? The amount of vocals Lauren got on there. I kid you not. I think Lauren has at least 3,000 vocal backgrounds on that record, literally doing Killing Me Softly. I think she spent like 6 or 7 days just doing backgrounds. For context, when you hear a finished song that was recorded by a singer, they usually don't just go in and record the song in one take. They'll sing the song over and over. They'll do runs and ad-libs, and then they'll record themselves singing the same words over and over, usually during a hook or a bridge, but they'll sing different parts each time so it all blends together. By doing this, they create harmonies. It makes a song sound full. I believe that without these additional elements, the songs we love wouldn't sound as good. The ad-libs and the harmonies fill a space in a song that we would consciously or subconsciously know was missing if it were not there. Here's what Wyclef had to say about the harmonies on Killing Me Softly. If you've heard my music through the years, you can hear all these layers of harmonies. So the best way to record it is, I like a little bit of reverb, but the first vocal, which will be the lead, is in the front, then harmony 1 goes to the left ear. Then, once I was done with harmony 1, it stays on the left ear, and harmony 2 goes on the right ear. Once I'm done with harmony 2 on the right ear, you push that harmony to the left ear, and I continue with harmony 3 on the right ear. And this is an algorithm that we use naturally to stack and to build incredible harmonies. And now we gotta talk about vocal effects. All my producers and mixing engineers know that when we're making beats or recording vocals, we use plugins which each contain multiple effects to enhance or sometimes minimize or change certain sounds in the mix. The best way I can describe it for people who don't make music is to use the analogy of cosmetic makeup. Now, I don't know a lot about makeup, and so I don't get myself in trouble. Makeup is one or more things a person applies to an already beautiful face to make it even more beautiful. One of the forms of makeup applied to Lauren's vocals was reverb. Wyclef explains it in more detail in the Hip Hop Hits book. Here's what he said. The reverb we used on her for that song and throughout the score was the XB80. I used a very small room reverb because the key to recording a vocalist who sounds so raw and so real is less is better. So you have to find the right amount of room to put in within the reverb, or you're basically going to put her in a situation of space and it's going to be missed. So the trick was to put her vocal in the front and just wet it a little bit. And I think we captured that. WBBB, bam, the future of boom bap music. Yo, WBBB, back to the boom bap radio. It's your man, Mr. Boom Bap, the boom bap enthusiast, holding it down. And today we're talking about the listening by Little Brother, Fonte, Big Pooh, and back then Knife Wonder was in it too. So you know how we do, 10 things you didn't know about the listening. So coming up, I'll be playing some facts about speed, Whatever You Say, the yo-yo, and a whole lot more, you know what I'm saying? So keep it locked on WBBB, back to the Boom Bap Radio. Peace. WBBB, bam, the future of boom bap music. Since we're going to be talking about the listening, I think it's only right to start with the song Speed. That song pretty much set the tone for what the album The Listening would become. The other thing is, if things had worked out differently, according to what was stated in their brilliant documentary, May the Lord Watch, Little Brother could have consisted of Fonte, Knife Wonder, and Median.
We were going to do a record one night called Speed, and it was supposed to be me and Median over a knife track. Median never shows up. And so Pooh was with me, and we just like, all right, well, shit, well, I mean, me and Pooh can rock it. All right, fuck it, let's do it.
I was anxious to show my improvement anyway. We do the record. I was hearing Pooh, I was like, oh shit. I could tell he started to gain his confidence, you know what I mean? And you could just hear it in him. We go out to the car. That was the ultimate test. Go out to the car. We running the record.
Take car, speaker losses tweaking, cause the way we be rocking it when joints is finished. At the speed we be moving, we can never be diminished. With my energy replenished, write a rhyme with puns and all my similes intended. Speed out until I finish up.
And we all looking at each other like, oh shit. I think we got something here.
Pooh couldn't have been more correct about them having something. Something that I discovered as a senior in college back in '03. One day, one of my friends brought over a blank CD of The Listening. He popped it in, and me, him, and the rest of my guys just sat there and listened to the whole thing. I've been a Little Brother fan ever since. But anyway, enough about me. Let me get back to the story. So they recorded Speed, did the car test, they loved it, and started recording more songs. Another one of those songs is the Yo-Yo. If I'm not mistaken, Phonte got a hip-hop quotable in the source for his verse on the song. In an episode of the Questlove Supreme podcast, Phonte talked about the thought process behind his verse on the song. Basically, what had happened was, Phonte had an underwhelming experience as a host of a local poetry night.
Yeah, poetry was always, for me, it was, and that's why I can appreciate with you, Malcolm, because, when you saying, I'm a poet, because for me coming up, so much of poets, they were failed MCs, you know what I mean? Like, they weren't really, they were, guys that's like, they weren't good enough to be rappers, so they would kind of be in like this middle ground, this poetry thing. But
now we're just critics.
Yeah, but all they poems would be about it'd just be about fucking and shit. You know what I mean? Like I was hosting this poetry night. I got this gig. And it was in Durham, and it was my friend Tracy Evora and Matt Sherman. They hear this wherever they are.
You tell us.
No, I know. I love Tracy and Matt to this day. Love them to this day. Tracy is actually the girl on the listening. It's WJLR Slow Jams. That's Tracy.
Right. Okay.
So anyway,
okay.
So she had this thing. She was having this poetry night. She was like, "Yo, we want you to come host it," and I was like, all right, cool. How much y'all paying? And it was like $100. And like, nigga, $100 in like 2000? What? Shit. It wasn't but $10 to fill up my little Mazda. Nigga, I was eating. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. So I go and I do the joint and I'm hosting and I'm just being me. You know what I mean? I'm just doing me. I'm talking my shit, just whatever. And the poets are coming up there and they're really bad. They kind of suck. And so I'm just talking my shit, whatever. So afterwards, the next day, we talk. She calls me after the gig, and I get paid and everything. And I'm like, yeah, so when's the next one? Like, I'm ready. I'm thinking it's going to be a monthly. I got like a little monthly, my little residency, whatever. My little $100, nigga. Shit, I'm out here. When the next joint? She was like, yeah, so we kind of got some complaint from the patrons, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, well, what complaint? Well, it was you saying the N-word. And I said, well, Tracy, I don't say the N-word. I say nigga. Let's clear that shit up real fast. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just being me. You know what I mean? It wasn't about poets or any, whatever. It was just about the pretentiousness of that scene.
No, you're
it
right.
wasn't about people with the craft. It was just the pretentiousness of the scene. It was just like, y'all are up here like claiming to be a higher level of conscience or whatever, but the rappers are rapping about fucking girls and y'all just up here talking about fucking girls. Like, get the fuck out of here.
But it makes a lot of sense to create a satire around the poetry scene though, because perception is reality sometimes. People have come to expect the finger snapping when the poems are done and the incense burning and the head wraps, but what are you really talking about though? And on The Listening, a recurring theme was Big Pooh and Phonte playing with the concept of style over substance. A little later, we'll discuss them doing that on the title track, The Listening, but right now, I want to talk about Phonte's verse on Whatever You Say. Did you know that Phonte almost went through a whole verse without rhyming? Of course you did, because he says it at the end of his verse in the one line where he rhymes. But if he hadn't done that, it probably would have taken me a few listens to notice it. He goes into more detail about his mindset behind creating this verse in an article that Little Brother did with Rolling Stone. One of the things he reveals in the article is that his Whatever You Say verse was inspired by Slum Village. Having a verse that didn't rhyme wasn't an idea I had before. That's just what came out of me when I heard that instrumental. I just thought it would be dope. Again, I was listening to Slum Village heavily at that time. Fantastic Volume 2, a God level album. I was playing it all the time. I really liked what they were doing as MCs just with rhythm and space. By 10, his verse on 2U 4U, that's not a rhyme. None of that rhymes. Also, in that same article, Fonte explains why he still chose to rhyme the last line of the verse. I was like, okay, in order for it to really sting that it wasn't rhyming, you have to have a rhyming couplet to trigger the audience. Like, oh wow. So the personal time and verse didn't rhyme. I was like, all right, you got to have that at the end so they can actually hear a rhyme to then realize that I was not rhyming the entire time before. As a matter of fact, check out what Doja Cat said about it.
That's the best, bruh. That's one of my favorite verses in the entire history of rap ever, 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 ever. That was so smooth. He didn't rhyme one word. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe the last bar. He said personal time and verse didn't rhyme. That was the only thing he rhymed together. The whole rest of that verse was not rhymed. Nothing, not one rhyming thing, but it worked.
I was a fan of hers already, but I really am now. But overall, things like Fonte's verse on that song is a nice touch because as listeners, it keeps us on our toes. This is not the album for you to kind of check out and just play in the background. And the good part is, we don't really have to speculate about Little Brother's intentions for how they wanted this album to be received. Fonte talks about it on these clips from the mini-doc The Listening, the story behind Little Brother's debut album, and a 2003 interview I found on the channel called D2S Archives. Little Brother views listening to an album as an event.
The significance of calling the album The Listening was that we really wanted to make a document. Like, we looked at it like an event, you know what I'm saying? And not just for our record, but just in general. Like, if you went to a store and you bought an album, you went back to your home or to your car and you sat down for the listening, where, you know, you would sit down, you listen to the music, you read the lyrics, you read the credits, you know what I mean? That was something that it was a ritual, you know, so the listening kind of refers to that in a way, just a ritual of how you consume music and how to consume art.
And in the D2S Archives clip, we get to see a very young Fonte praising some classic hip-hop albums and revealing that The Listening was inspired by albums that were meant to be consumed as one complete body of work.
I was just always a big fan of albums like, you know, Nation of Millions, De La Soul is Dead, Death Certificate by Ice Cube, America's Most Wanted by Ice Cube, like, just albums like that, man, that just told a whole story. And like, you could, if you wanted to, like, you could just pick one track out and listen to it, but it's kind of like watching one scene from a DVD, you know what I'm saying? Like, on Death Certificate, I mean, that joint is like a movie, man, you know what I'm saying? And like, every song has a place, and it's just very, you know, carefully put together, and just the brilliance of albums like that, you just don't see too often no more, man. And I just really miss, like, the feeling of listening to albums like that, like it was like a, you know what I'm saying, like a cinematic experience or whatever. So that was the idea. We just want to take it back to a time when albums were albums and were meant to be listened to in their entirety, versus just, okay, just give us 3 singles and the rest you can do what you want to do with, and we'll call it an album, see what sticks. You know what I'm saying? We wanted to make an album that made sense from beginning to end.
And while we're discussing The Listening, let's talk about the title track, The Listening. What inspired the nonsensical but comical verses that Little Brother featured on that song? The answer can be found on their interview from Unique Access Entertainment. You see, their verses on the song The Listening were inspired by the verbal stylings of Ghostface Killah and Camp Lo.
It was just, for me, and I just say for me because I'm just speaking from my perspective, you know, Pooh's perspective, you know, probably different, but for me, it was definitely Ghostface, it was a little Camp Lo, you know what I mean? Just those MCs who I would listen to, because for me, I always notice that me, like, I'm very, like, I need things, like, to make sense. Like, they have to connect. They have to be, like, it has to make sense. You know what I mean? And I always admired those MCs like a ghost. Like, I remember reading an interview and somebody questioned him about what he meant. It was like a line he said in Nutmeg. You know, Scooby Snack Jurassic movie gets booby trap. Like, and they were asked, like, so what did that mean? And he was just like, I don't know what the fuck that meant. I was high when I wrote that shit. I don't know. And I thought that shit was amazing. Like, Nutmeg is like one of my top Ghostface songs. You know what I mean? And I just always admired those MCs that had that bravery to just be like, fuck it, I'm gonna just get that value, I guess, more form over content, so to speak. You know what I mean? Or maybe the other way around, but just the feeling of something rather than the literal meaning of it. And that was something that always scared the fuck out of me, because I just always had that need to kind of make sense. So with the listening, yeah, it was just that was me, like, imitating those MCs and paying homage to those guys that I really just loved, who just had that ability and the freedom to just be just absurd.
And with the understanding that listening to an album is an experience, another aspect of that experience is the album cover artwork. Little Brother wanted their album cover to have a similar feel to the albums that they were listening to. So now we'll return to their Unique Access Entertainment interview to hear what they had to say about coming up with the album cover for the listening.
We come from the generation of when albums come out, we get the artwork, we examine it, we open it, we pour over the details of you know, the lyrics.
That's the listening, like that's
the experience.
Yeah.
The experience of opening up our CD and viewing it had to go with the music.
We just wanted something that looked like it fit in with the music that we listen to. You know what I'm saying? That kind of sepia, those really like warm earth tones. You know, if you looked at, you know, Black Star album, you know, if you looked at most Black on Both Sides, if you looked at Reflection Eternal, if you looked at Common, like Water for Chocolate, Slum Village,
even One Day It'll All Make Sense for Common.
One Day It'll All Make Sense. Yeah, it was like those were aesthetically, that's what we felt like. So I was like, okay, we have to have something that looks like we fit in with these other groups. And I think that was the driving force for it. The designer of the cover, my man, Frank William Miller Jr., FWMJ. That's, you know, that shout to him. That's my brother. We go back, you know, OK Player days, almost, you know, hell, 20 years at this point. You know, like straight up. So nah, man, shouts to my brother Frank, man. That was just as we were kind of going back and forth, and he was sending us stuff, because he would send stuff to me and then I would send it to the fellas. You know what I'm saying? I'd send it to Pooh and Knife. I'm like, all right, so what y'all think? You know what I mean? And then I would go back to him. We'd make changes, whatever.
I think them headphones was photoshopped in. I don't even.
Yeah, they weren't ours. We didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't have them type of headphones.
Headphones we recorded the listening on were not that nice.
No.
You guys were using your Walkman headphones?
Bro, like damn near.
Just about.
Those with the little orange, the fucking orange pads on them. Shit. Yeah, bro. Nah, man. I remember getting the treatment back from Frank, and he just, you know, he had the headphones by it, you know what I mean? And I just remember thinking, I was like, yeah, that looks right, you know what I mean? And like I sent it, you know, I showed it to Pooh and Knife, and it was like, we all were just like, yo, that shit hard, you know what I mean? So but yeah, the headphones, they were not our headphones. We did not own a pair of headphones that nice.
Artistic decision from Frank that we felt worked. It fit. It made sense to us. It looked right as we were, you know, viewing it, going over it, and so we kept it.
So now that we've talked about the songs, the meaning of the listening, and the album cover, we kind of got to touch on the reception of the album once it was done. One of the first noteworthy people in hip-hop who I would say is a huge fan and supporter from day one was Questlove of The Roots. Because if you didn't know, around 1999, The Roots started a website called okplayer.com. This website had a daily blog when no one knew what a blog was yet, and they had message boards as well. It really was one of the first online hip-hop communities, and Questlove loved the listening so much that he left the CD playing while he was sleeping. In this clip from the May the Lord Watch documentary, Questlove tells the story of when he first heard the listening.
I was in my dressing room, eating dinner, and I was staring at it, and it just said Little Brother. Yeah, he'll probably ask me on the boards what I thought about it, and I don't want to like bullshit him. All right, let me listen to this. And I put it in.
Yeah, yo, Tay, man. Let me put you on.
I kept it on rotate, like even when I'm in my sleep, I didn't turn down the volume. I guess I, became a fan because it played for like 12 hours in a row until it was time for bus call at 3 p.m. I thought about it. I know I made a post about it, like, yo, I really like this joint, oh, no kid. But then I felt like, oh, man, then if I say I like them, then what about the other 92 billion joints you didn't listen to? And I was just like, oh, man, this is too good.
Yo, I swear to God, I had to make this video because being from North Carolina, being in college around the same time when Little Brother was first starting, I feel so close to their story. It's so relatable. It feels like the dream that you could put your music out as a shot in the dark, but to have someone you look up to listen to it, love it, and that could lead to a 20+ year career, is really possible. But because I'm a true day one Little Brother fan and Ninth Wonder's thoughts and opinions were a blaring omission from the May the Lord Watch documentary, I'm going to end this with a clip from his documentary, The Wonder Year, where he briefly discusses the beginnings of Little Brother and addresses why Little Brother is now a 2-man group instead of a 3-man group.
In 2001, we recorded a song called Speed. And I looked at both of them and I said, man, I want to be a group. And I was just like, well, it doesn't work. We always got Speed, but if it does work, we're on to something. And that was the beginning of it. And we recorded in Comanche's bedroom, The Listening, which took us from August to February to record. Some people say it's still our best record. It's a perfect album almost, some people would say. And the way it was recorded on speakers that didn't even pan. And for people who don't know what pan means, if you put on headphones, you hear stuff in this ear, and you hear stuff in this ear. So stuff is panned to the left, and stuff is panned to the right. Well, these speakers, there were no pan. So I had to gauge where exactly the pan went. So it took a lot of burn CDs going back and forth to the car to gauge it. Once I got it, that was it. So this is the way we recorded it, how we recorded it. Just the way it was put together was just an incredible feat. I don't think it'll ever be done again. Once in a lifetime. Through so many, and I never talk about it, and I vowed that I never will talk about it. But through so many miscommunications and so many, this, that, and the third, whether it been me, whether it been Fonte, whether it been Pooh, whether it been whatever, Little Brother as 3 members is no more. Little Brother as 2 members still lives. Right? For whatever was my fault in it, Tay's fault in it, Pooh's fault in it, because I never one time said that I didn't have a fault in it. But for whatever it is, we made some of the most incredible music, and we spawned a whole new generation of artists.
This is 10 things you didn't know about Good Kid, Mad City. Kendrick Lamar is easily one of the greatest artists of this millennium so far. Don't believe me? Who else could turn a diss track into a runaway viral hit? But I want to take it all the way back to his debut. We'll talk about the meaning of the album title, the album cover, and the thought process behind some of the songs on the album. So I'm Mr. Boom Bap, the Boom Bap enthusiast, and I present to you 10 things you didn't know about Good Kid, Mad City. As I listened to Good Kid, Mad City in its entirety for the first time in a long time when I knew I was making this video, it's become more clear to me why people love this album so much. One of those reasons is because Kendrick is such an amazing storyteller. As you may know, the story Kendrick tells doesn't last for just one song, but throughout the whole album. And the other reason is something that Kendrick himself came to realize when he put out the album. It's so relatable. One of Kendrick's fans explained to him why so many people can relate to this album. He elaborates on this in an interview he gave to the Grammys Recording Academy.
When I go around the world and I do these shows, and I'd be intrigued how, these people are singing these lyrics. When the album first came out, they just sing these lyrics, and I say to myself, how do y'all, connect with these lyrics and you're not even from Compton? That's what I was saying in the early stages. And then I sat back and I was talking to a person, you know, that was at the show. He was a fan. And he said it does more, you know, than just saying you're from the streets or you did this and did that. I was in a dark place. I'm in a positive space. That's the concept that I got from the album. And I said, you're right. That's exactly what it is. And I can see how everybody can take their own niches from it and make it into their own.
A lot of you will probably teach me a lot about this album in the comments, especially if you were in your early teens in 2012. It hits different when you grow up listening to an artist. When I look at Kendrick, he reminds me so much of Nas. There's the fact that his debut album is almost universally seen as a classic. He has a childhood picture as his album cover, which we'll talk about a little more later. And similar to the way the Illmatic is being studied at Harvard nowadays, there's a lot to unpack on this album. But to me, the best place to start is with the meaning. Now let me be clear, Kendrick wants us to interpret the meaning of the album for ourselves. But when Big Boy from Power 106 Los Angeles asked him what Good Kid, Mad City is about, he had this to say.
Man, Good Kid, Mad City, I like people to go into the album and really understand it and break down. But the whole story and the concept, really a self-portrait about myself, you know, trying my best to escape the influences of the city, you know, and figuring it out. So if you listen to it from top to bottom, you'll get the whole aspect and concept.
And it's only right that a concept album that covers so much ground would have an album cover to match. And yes, I know that there are 2 album covers, but today we're talking about the Baby Kendrick cover. Did you know that Kendrick had the idea for his album cover for a long time? He talked about this on Power 106 Los Angeles as well.
You know, that album cover, you know, I had it for years. I knew it was gonna be my album cover. Everything was really premeditated. And that picture just really represents the lifestyle, you know, me growing up in Compton and being influenced by so much. Those my uncles. And my grandfather. So when you hear me talk about something like swimming pools and I say, you know, what parties was going on, that was really me, you know, and that's my lifestyle. That's you know, what I represent. And that was really just a struggle. You know, a lot of people want me to do a different cover, but I was like, no, this is it. This is what's gonna be, you know, and this represents me.
And if you look closely, you'll see that on the album cover, a baby bottle is next to a 40 ounce.
I just want to show the innocence, you know, of a kid not knowing that a baby bottle was next to a 40 ounce.
Oh,
you know?
that is crazy.
See,
when you blacked the eyes out, I thought they didn't clear the picture.
He also reveals who the family members are on the picture with Baby Kendrick.
2 on the left, I'm on the lap of my uncle.
Yes, sir.
To the left again, that's my other uncle.
Yes,
and
sir.
to the right, that's my grandfather.
I heard that, man. Are everybody still here with us?
Yeah.
So they got to be.
Wow.
This got to be amazing for them.
Them 2 in the pen.
Oh, okay.
My uncle's in the pen, but
We'll
my
make sure we send this. Damn, both of them. Huh?
Yeah. They proud of that though. So
as they should be. Best believe that. I know them books are looking healthy too. You know what I'm saying? Nephew Kendrick, man, we made it. You know that's my nephew on that thing, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know that's him, right?
But now let's get into the creative process of the album. We all know that Kendrick is a prolific writer. He throws words at us at 1,000,000 miles a minute, sometimes telling stories, other times boasting on his greatness as an MC. He switches flows and even changes his voice a lot of times. But did you know that Kendrick Lamar writes in his head? And by that I mean he does the Jay-Z thing, writing with no pen and paper. J-Rock confirms this in a Google Play documentary on Kendrick from back in the day.
Kendrick came through. I remember we was doing this record, the first record we ever did. And I was struggling to write my verse. I'm writing on a piece of paper and stuff. I'm writing on paper. And I'm trying to hurry up and finish my verse before him. But all the time, he already finished his verse. I'm like, oh, where your paper at? I'm like, you ain't writing on? He said, nah. He said, I write in my head. That moment right there, I was like, wow, this dude is something else.
Let's talk about the thought process behind some of the songs on the album. I'm only going to touch on about 4 songs right now, but if you want to take a deeper dive into the album, write part 2 in the comments. If a lot of you do it, then I'll make a part 2. The first song I want to talk about is Swimming Pools. Now, if you've heard this song, you know he's not talking about a small body of water he jumps in to cool off in the summertime. In the Google Play documentary from the previous fact, Kendrick talked about what swimming pools means to him.
Swimming pool is definitely a true experience. You grow up in this household and you see everybody's drinking and not drinking casually, but actually, you know, getting drunk majority of the times, and then you find yourself doing the same thing, you know, as a teenager, indulging in that, and everybody else influenced by it. And as I grew as a person, you know, I had to make the choice, and I found out what was right and what was wrong. I could either be a casual drinker or I could be a drunk, and that's what that song is basically about.
Another standout track on Good Kid, Mad City is Backseat Freestyle. If you haven't watched the video the Genius made on the making of Backseat Freestyle, I don't want to rob you of that experience here, so I do recommend that you watch it. But I want to let you know that Hit Boy revealed the Backseat Freestyle beat was originally made for a popular R&B singer.
I had to be for a minute. I did a session with my homeboy Sounds, and he got a relationship with Sierra, and we went in the studio, she cut it, and the name of the song was Hit Boy. So I was dumb hype. The situation fell apart, I don't know how. So like I low-key was like disappointed. You know, that's for every producer. Like, don't get discouraged because like this became like a much more legendary track than it would have been.
And what would a Good Kid, Mad City video be without me talking about Mad City? Mad City features MC8, and on a Vlad TV interview, MC8 said Kendrick made it easy for him to jump on Mad City. What I mean is when Kendrick contacted him about getting on the track, he already had, well, as a matter of fact, let me let MC8 tell you how it all went down.
So I went to the studio, and as soon as I got there, he sat me down, told me the direction of what he wanted to do, how he wanted the song to go, what he wanted the hook to say, what he wanted me to say on the hook, the streets he wanted me to name, all that. So for a cat who was, you know, just getting into this shit, he was already there with it. Like, he knew how he wanted his songs laid out, the direction of it, the music, you know, all that. The breakdown from going from Mad City to that song, and it was all laid out in his vision. So I thought that was pretty big.
And then there's the song that's named after where Kendrick is from. That's right, you guessed it, Compton. If we return to that Google Play documentary I mentioned earlier, you'll discover that Kendrick, remember, this is the first song he recorded with a certain legendary producer. Who's that producer? The one who's on the song with him. And if you still don't know who I'm talking about, you're about to find out.
The day that I met Dre, I wrote the lyrics. I just happened to fall in the studio while Just Blaze in there, and he's playing this crazy monstrous beat. You know, Dre, you know, around it. And I immediately got inspired. I just started writing. And that was actually the first studio session that I had with Dre. That's the last song on the album for a specific reason. That's the first song I did with Dre. That was the start of my new life.
Because so many of you love part 1 of 10 things you didn't know about Good Kid, Mad City, and you responded and told me you wanted it, I'm back as promised with part 2. So if the first video was a movie, this is like the bonus features. More facts about some of the songs from the album, and more from Kendrick and some of the producers on the process of making some of the songs on the album. So sit back and enjoy 10 more things you didn't know about Good Kid, Mad City. In the first video, I talked about Mad City, and when you look at how mad is spelled, you're probably wondering what it means. You can get the answer from this interview from LA Leakers where Kendrick revealed what the acronym MAD stands for.
It's two minutes. The first one is my angry adolescence divided, and the basic standout meaning is my angels on angels dust.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've been curious about that answer too, man.
That's the reason why I don't smoke.
Do so you knew somebody on Angel?
No, that was me.
You?
The guy laced.
Oh.
Reason why I don't smoke, and it's in that album.
Well, who's the motherfucker that laced your shit?
It's in the story. It's in the story.
Did you find out? Did you beat that person's ass?
Nah, it was just me getting my hands on the wrong thing at the wrong time when I, you know, being oblivious to it.
That gives you more insight into what the album is about without spoiling it for you. But of course, there's a lot more to talk about, like Backseat Freestyle. If you read the piece Complex wrote called The Making of Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City, you'll find that the Backseat Freestyle beat instantly caught Kendrick's ear. This information comes directly from the song's producer, Hit Boy. Later on, I was just at the crib. I work out of my crib, and Kendrick came through. As soon as that beat came on, he was like, "That's the one. This is going on my album." He went out on the road and ended up recording out there. The other thing about Backseat Freestyle is it's not just a random album track. Besides having an amazing video, it fits in with the story. And Kendrick lets us know where Backseat Freestyle fits in the Good Kid, Mad City narrative. That's really the start of the art of peer pressure. It flows into the album. It's about me and my homeboys really getting in the backseat and starting our day. Sometimes we'll rap. It takes away from everything else. That's one of the feelings that the record produces. And the feeling the Now or Never record produced for TDE President Punch was that it needed a singer who makes big records, but Kendrick originally had a singer not named Mary J. Blige in mind for Now or Never. That song feels like the credits rolling to a movie. Originally, it was supposed to be Jasmine Sullivan on the hook. We felt for that type of record, we needed a presence like Mary J. Blige. The record sounds so big, and Mary is the queen of hip-hop soul. Who was bigger than her based off how we grew up and what we've been through? It just made sense. And this wasn't the first time that Kendrick had a singer in mind who didn't make the album. Lady Gaga was almost on Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe. Lady Gaga was going to be on the song. We had a date, but we had to meet the deadline for the pre-order date. That's just the business side coming through and messing things up. But you know it's God's plan. I'm not really too tight about it because I know we have something special. But unlike Lady Gaga, there was one person who definitely wasn't going to miss this project. That person is Kendrick's longtime friend and producer, Soundwave. There's one story Soundwave tells about one of Kendrick's biggest co-signers' involvement on this project, the legendary Dr. Dre. Soundwave was blown away by Dr. Dre's attention to detail. He was mixing Shireen, aka Master Splinter's daughter. It was me, Kendrick, and Derek Ali in the room, and Dr. Dre stepped out for a second. We were listening to it, and Ali shifted one little hi-hat, probably by accident. We didn't hear it. We were just like, yeah, this sounds real good. Dr. Dre walks in, and he's listening to it like, who touched something? Everybody looked at each other like, yo, what? He says, no, something sounds completely off. So he dissects everything and finds one little shift of a hi-hat over to the right, and we're all just blown away. They're like, how can you even catch that? Another thing Soundwave shared is how much that he, as in Soundwave, contributed to the album. Soundwave estimated that he produced about 40% of Good Kid, Mad City. It's probably listed as 3 songs, but not knowing the rules back then, I didn't give myself credit for the songs I would add to. If I didn't produce it, I didn't tell anybody. Like, people don't know I did the 808s on Poetic Justice, stuff like that, because it's not listed. One of the other producers that worked on Good Kid, Mad City is DJ Dahi. He produced Money Trees. Just like he told us on a video by NPR Music, DJ Dahi likes to sample songs and reverse them.
One of my favorite records called Money Trees off of Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City album. I produced it with the sample Silver Soul by Beach House. With this particular one, I as soon as I heard it, I just liked the sound of the crackly sound in the beginning and just like the way we kind of built in. I tried a couple little things chop-wise, but I was like, yo, I just like the sound. I don't want to break it up, so let me just try to reverse it. The idea behind Reverse Records being this satanic, devilish, experience is straight, ridiculous. If they hear something that you don't understand or something that sounds foreign, people are quick to claim it as, bad.
And remember when I told you Kendrick said that Backseat Freestyle was an early setup for the art of peer pressure? Well, Punch, the president of TDE, describes the art of peer pressure as a scene from a movie. If you're looking at the album as a movie, that song is like the action scene, the story of him and his boys after the Backseat Freestyle and what they're about to do. His lyrics are so detailed, they paint such a picture. The lyrics tell you every single step.
The art of peer pressure is, that's just my life, man. Even the characters involved, I can relate to that on so many levels, even all of the references that he was using.
I got the blunt in my mouth. Usually I'm drug free, but shit, I'm with the homies. I'm sure everybody can relate, to a specific time in their lives where, they're with a group of guys and you're influenced by these cats because you grew up with them and you respect them. And most of the times your doings, it'd be wrongdoings and you know it. You know at the end of the day. But at the same time, you're comfortable with them and, you have that bond and that brotherhood. And that's the art of peer pressure.
And now that I've talked about Mad City in the part 1 video and in this video, it's only right that I give you a fact about the song Good Kid, because that sets up the dichotomy. Kendrick is from a mad city, but he's the good kid in that mad city. Pharrell Williams produced Good Kid, and when asked about the song, Pharrell referred to Kendrick as a rebel. His approach to music proves how much of a rebel he is for his art. This guy doesn't care what's going on with radio. He approached his album the same way Adele and Frank Ocean did. Those kinds of artists only care about making music that's true to who they are. I could not be more honored to be a part of his album. It's the return of the Backpackers for a whole new audience. If you made it this far, check out another one of my videos as well. This time I let YouTube pick the video it thinks you should watch next. And honestly, it's because I wasn't sure which one to link to this, but we'll just keep that between me and you. So click or tap the screen to watch that video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.